All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to unlock a literal grammatical superpower, one that's going to take your Japanese from sounding, well, kind of like a choppy robot, to a much more fluent, natural speaker. You know, if you've been studying Japanese for a bit, you've probably hit that annoying plateau, right? You know a ton of words, but putting them all together just feels clunky. Well, we're going to figure out exactly how to bridge that gap right now. Seriously, if you're tired of speaking in those short, isolated little sentences, this is exactly the level up journey you need. I mean, right now, you might be saying things like, I woke up, I ate, I went to school. Sure, it gets the point across, but let's be honest, it kind of makes you sound like a textbook brought to life. It just lacks that natural flow. The concept we're covering today is basically the bridge that's going to connect all those separate thoughts into one smooth stream of communication. So enter the te form. This is your ultimate connector tool. It's essentially a conjunctive form of a verb or an adjective. But here's what's absolutely fascinating about it. It has absolutely no intrinsic tense of its own. None. It literally just borrows its tense entirely from the final verb in your sentence. So whether you're talking about something you did yesterday or something you're going to do tomorrow, the te form stays exactly the same. It just acts as the glue holding your whole sentence together. Here's our quick roadmap for today. First, the te form superpower. Then, a conjugation bootcamp, some simple everyday examples, the negative te form, and finally, a naide versus nakute showdown. Starting off with part 1, the te form superpower, unlocking fluid sentences. Think about how we naturally speak in everyday life. Instead of putting a hard stop after I ate breakfast, you just use the te form of the verb to eat. That seamlessly links it to the very next action. It literally injects this feeling of and then right into your sentence. You ate and then you went to work. And remember that rule about tense? The tense of both of those actions is dictated entirely by that one final verb at the end, went.
All right, moving on to part 2. Conjugation bootcamp, transforming verbs into the te form.
Before we start firing off complex sentences, we actually need to know how to make this form. And it turns out there's a massive shortcut. If you already know your simple past tense, conjugating the affirmative te form is literally as easy as swapping a single syllable. I mean, sure, there are these huge, complex conjugation charts out there, but this is the ultimate hack. If the simple past tense ends in ta, you just swap it to te. And if it ends in da, you swap it to de. Seriously, that's the whole shebang. Now, it's really cool seeing this pattern actually play out. Take yomu, to read. In the past tense, it's yonda, so naturally the te form is yonde. Deru becomes deta, so the te form is dette. It is incredibly consistent. But hey, pay special attention to the verb for to go right at the bottom there, iku. Its past tense is itta, which makes its te form itte. It's a slight exception to the standard dictionary rules, but notice how it still perfectly follows our little past tense shortcut hack. Which brings us to part 3, simple everyday examples. Target practice in the real world. So, armed with our new conjugation skills, let's look at how we use this in real life. You can use it to string actions together chronologically. Let's say you want to tell someone you went to the cinema and then grabbed dinner. You literally just put the verb to go into the te form. Simple. And the best part, you aren't limited to just 2 verbs. You could totally say, I woke up, and then I ate, and then I went to school, just by chaining the te form multiple times. Though, quick tip, be careful not to overdo it, or you're going to sound like you're just endlessly rambling. Here's another incredibly handy use. By simply tossing the word kudasai onto the end of the te form, you instantly create a polite request or command. Now, the te form on its own can actually be used as a casual command with your close friends, but adding kudasai, that makes it socially safe and perfectly polite for everyday interactions. For example, nande is the te form of drink, so kusuri o nande kudasai literally means please drink the medicine, which, fun fact, is exactly how Japanese expresses taking medication. Okay, brace yourselves for part 4, the negative te form, the boss fight begins. Now, we've arrived at what is probably the most intimidating part of this whole journey for beginners, the negative forms. Look, if you have ever stared at these 2 nearly identical-looking negative sentences and wondered why on earth only one of them is right, trust me, you are not alone. Naide and nakute are both negative te forms, and yeah, they both translate loosely to not doing something in English. But here's the catch. They are absolutely not interchangeable. Mastering the difference between these 2, that is a massive step up for your fluency. Part 5, the naide versus nakute showdown, featuring the 3-rule test. To conquer this boss fight, we're going to use a bulletproof framework I like to call the three-rule test. If we can just memorize these 3 rules, we're going to correctly resolve like 95% of those confusing situations. Whenever you're stuck deciding between naide and nakute, just walk yourself through these 3 bullet points in order. Let's break down exactly how each one works in practice. Rule number 1, negative requests. The golden rule here with that negative request with kudasai, absolutely always take naide. If you want to tell someone, please do not do something, you have to use the naide form. Honestly, the phrase nakute kudasai simply does not exist in the Japanese language. So please do not run is just hashiya naide kudasai. This rule is fantastic because it literally has 0 exceptions. Rule number 2 deals with manner. When you want to describe an action you took while purposely skipping another action, like, say, coming to work without eating your breakfast, you use naide. Basically, you're describing the manner in which you did the main action. The focus here is on the fact that an expected action did not happen. You did action B while actively choosing not to do action A. And finally, rule number 3, cause and effect. If you can swap the phrase in your head with because I didn't, or if it involves some kind of uncontrollable emotion or consequence, you absolutely must use nakute. Nakute almost always introduces an emotion, a state of being, or just an unavoidable consequence in that second clause. So unlike a deliberate choice, this is an uncontrollable result. Because there was no time, the consequence was that you couldn't go. The complete lack of time literally caused the inability to go. Let's see how this builds your understanding by looking at 2 very similar scenarios side by side. Notice how the left side explains a deliberate choice of action. It's a manner. You purposely didn't buy a tie, you borrowed one instead. So that takes naide. But look at the right side. This sentence explains a consequence caused by a lack of money. Because you didn't have money, you were physically unable to buy it. That is pure cause and effect, which strictly requires nakute. So next time you want to say something like, I am sad because I couldn't see my family. Which one are you going to choose? I'm going to leave you with that mini quiz to test out your new superpower. Think back to the 3-rule test we just covered. Are you making a request? Are you describing a manner of action? Or are you expressing an uncontrollable emotion caused by a negative state? Run it through the test. Once you figure this out, I promise you're going to start hearing this pattern everywhere. In anime, in everyday conversation, literally everywhere. Keep an ear out for it and enjoy your brand new level of conversational fluidity.